All right, welcome. Today, we're going to decode a secret language, one that the financial markets use every single day to tell us what's coming next. We're going to learn how to read the market's mind and see what it's predicting for the future. Let's jump right in. It all starts with this one very simple looking line. This is the yield curve. But don't let its simplicity fool you for a second. Hiding inside this line is a powerful prediction. It's a forecast for interest rates, for inflation, even for economic growth. So the big question is, how do we crack the code? Well, the answer lies in something called the expectations theory. And what's kind of amazing is that this entire theory, it's all built on just one single powerful idea about how investors make one very big choice. And that core idea is called perfect substitutability. I know, it's a fancy term, but the idea behind it is super simple. It just means that to an investor, a long-term bond and a series of short-term bonds are basically the same thing. They're just two different roads that lead to the exact same destination. I mean, imagine you're an investor for a second. According to this theory, you'd be perfectly happy choosing between two options. Option A, you lock your money away for 30 years straight. Or option B, you invest for just 1 year, and then you reinvest that money every single year for the next 29 years. The theory says you'd see these two paths as equal, as long as you expect the total payout to be about the same. Okay, so here's where it gets really cool. This simple idea that investors just don't care which path they take allows us to create a surprisingly elegant and powerful rule. It basically transforms a psychological assumption into a straight-up mathematical formula. Let's just walk through the logic here. So we start with our core assumption, right? Investors are totally indifferent. They see no real difference between taking the long road or taking a series of short roads. All they care about is the return. So, if those paths are truly equal, then the interest rate on a long-term bond has to be the simple average of all the future short-term interest rates the market expects to see over that same time. That's it. That is the secret formula that's hidden inside the yield curve. All right, now for the fun part. Let's take this simple rule and actually put it to the test. We're going to see how it perfectly explains the three classic shapes that the yield curve can take, and in doing so, reveals exactly what the market is thinking in each case. So let's start with our first scenario. Imagine the entire market, all the investors, all the traders, they all believe that short-term interest rates are going to go up. Maybe they think the economy is about to boom. So maybe today the one-year rate is, let's say, 1%. But the market expects it to be 2% next year, and then 3% the year after that. You can see the clear upward trend in their expectations. So what's the average of 1, 2, and 3%? Well, it's 2%, right? That means the 3-year rate today would be 2%, which is higher than the current 1-year rate of 1%. And just like that, expectations of rising rates create a normal, upward sloping yield curve. The long-term average gets pulled up by those higher future rates. Okay, on to scenario number 2. This time, the market is feeling pretty stable. The general thinking is that interest rates aren't really going anywhere. They're just expected to stay flat for a while. So in this world, the 1-year rate is 1% today, and the market expects it to stay at 1% next year. And you guessed it, 1% the year after that. No changes, just steady as she goes. And the average of 1, 1, and 1 is, of course, 1. So this means the rate for a 3-year bond will be the exact same as the rate for a 1-year bond. And boom, you get a completely flat yield curve. It's simple, it's logical, and it's all driven by what the market expects. And now for our final and definitely most talked about scenario. This is the one you always hear about on the news. This is what happens when the market starts to get nervous, when investors believe short-term interest rates are headed down, maybe signaling a recession is coming. So in this case, let's say the rate today is pretty high, maybe at 4%. But the market expects the central bank to start cutting rates to boost the economy. So they predict it'll be 3% next year, and then fall even further to 2% the year after that. So what happens when you average 4, 3, and 2? You get 3. This means the 3-year rate at 3% is now lower than the current 1-year rate of 4%. This causes the whole curve to flip upside down. And that is the famous inverted yield curve. It's a direct reflection of the market screaming that it expects rates to fall. So we've seen just how powerful this one theory is. It really does give us a direct window into the market's collective brain. But it's really important to put this into the proper context.
The expectations theory is absolutely crucial, but it is not the whole story. You should think of it as one really important piece of a three-piece puzzle. It's one of three major theories that economists use together to get the full picture of why the yield curve looks the way it does. So I'll leave you with this. Now that you understand the expectations theory, the next time you see a headline or hear someone on TV say that the yield curve is inverted, you'll know exactly what that means. You'll know the market is broadcasting a very specific message about the future. The only question is, what is it telling us?